Good afternoon, and welcome to Expansion of Consciousness. I'm your host, Jason Medlock. And again, today we're expanding our consciousness in a different way. We're going to have a wonderful guest on today, Elizabeth Clark, and her intuition and her leadership program is something special. Discernment and framework, evidence-based methodology. Elizabeth is a wonderful coach out here that helps people understand how to get to the next level, how to achieve your next big level in your career. We're going to bring her on, but before we do that, let me tell you a little bit about Elizabeth. Elizabeth is an intuition and leadership mentor, seven-time published biomedical researcher and psychoneurobiologist who uses her own esoteric and evidence-based methodology, discernment framework, to help driven women trust their own inner wisdom so that they can move boldly as the new IYKYK obsession in their field. Previously, Elizabeth spent several years in the biomedical research and development, including leading a team of scientists as an R&D executive at a clinical diagnosis lab that named her key person in 2020 for her role in taking them from 1 million a year in revenue to 20 million. Sounds like somebody you want on your team. That's 20 million a month in just under 6 months. Elizabeth's passion to find more meaningful answers to unsolved issues and topics are usually approached with only a surface level of understanding. Without any further ado, the brilliant Elizabeth Clark. Hello, Elizabeth. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Did you see all that passion I put into your bio?
I did. Thank you. That was quite an introduction.
Yes, yes. So, you know, when it comes to astrology, and then you mix in leadership, brand archetypes, just different methods to get in touch with your intuition. You do it all, and it appears that the key ingredient behind all the knowledge that you have, all the education that you've picked up over the years, is all driven by metaphysics and different ways to tap into your intuition. So my first question is a simple one. Tell us about you and how you got started on this path
Sure.
and where you are today.
Yeah, I grew up in a family that was, just kind of into not necessarily metaphysical stuff, but into self-expression and learning about different cultures, religions, spiritual practices. So I just from the start, approached life as what's real, what's true, what resonates. I didn't really have anything like indoctrinated into me. So I really got into astrology at a young age, probably like 10 years old.
I love astrology. Go ahead.
I know I was like obsessed with it. I was, the weird astrology girl. Still am, really. But um, I went to school for dietetics and eventually did my master's in nutrition science and did my dietetic internship. And during that whole process of getting my master's, researching, doing the dietetic internship, I got really sick and had to take medical leave and use some really weird and alternative methods to heal. And I was, kind of bought into that already. I had experienced some of that as a kid. I had been sick before, and my parents took me to what they called a witch doctor. And it healed me. So I was really open to that. But what I wasn't open to was trauma and emotional healing and anything metaphysical having a connection with physical healing. So I healed and then got sick again after experiencing some trauma. It wasn't even my trauma. Long story short, I watched a documentary on people that had the same illness that I had,
Mhm.
and it reactivated that susceptibility in me. It was mold illness at the time. So I was working in a hospital for my internship, and I knew it was moldy, but I wasn't sick from it. I watched this documentary on mold illness and how traumatic it is, went back into the hospital and was sick from mold. It was absolutely like eye-opening to me that maybe there's something more to even physical well-being, So I got even deeper into astrology. I found medical astrology, and I decided, if this is real, if astrology is real, then I'll be able to do my medical astrology chart and it'll match up with what I know about, all of my history of chronic illness. So I sat down, did my medical astrology reading, and everything that came up were things having to do with my spine. And it was like specific vertebrae. And I was like, okay, well, I have some full spine MRIs from like the year before. Let's see, if this matches up. And it was like vertebrae for vertebrae. Like
Wow.
it was so crazy. So then I decided, at the time I had a little private practice, a little web-based private practice where I was doing nutrition stuff. And I decided I'm going to bring in some spirituality and some astrology. And then I got really deep into the rabbit hole on muscle testing, which is one of the things that, my witch doctors used to heal me. And I started using it for intuition, tapping into my intuition with self muscle testing. And then I just kind of went down, this tangent of, how deep can it get? Like how good can my intuition be? And I ended up discovering that I, like a lot of people who don't even know it, have a psychic level of intuition that you can just tap into and feel this yes or no answer in your body. So I, ended up going into corporate when COVID happened because of my research background. I had a friend at a lab that needed some help with R&D, and they called me, and I was like, yeah, sure, this sounds exciting. So I did some R&D, got to, get my hands wet again with research, which I love. And then after transitioning out of that, had a baby and opened up my private practice again, but this time with a focus on, performance and
Yes.
business development and using these
Yes.
like esoteric tools,
Yes.
you
Keep
know?
going, girl. Yes. I love it. No, keep going because, we start to use these tools to get ourselves out of a position, an unfavorable position, and it may be health, it may be mental, whatever it is, and then we realize we can use this to help people, even in business,
Yeah.
even help people grow income. So that's why I'm applauding you behind the scenes.
Thank you. Yeah, that was like a really full circle moment for me when I was able to use my method for getting in touch with my intuition to guide research and development projects. Whereas, the business development team were primarily, just people who don't really buy into, esoteric type of things or spirituality. They're looking at like the logic driven picture. Let's A B test it, and what does what does the data say? And me being able to tap into this, this thing that we all have, you just have to know how to tap into it. I'm looking at it like, well, we could do that, but it's not going to work. Let's do this instead. And then, here we are being able to actually see the evidence in real life.
Wow. I want to go backwards for a second before I even forget this. You talked about how you used astrology to initially find out or to validate some things that you were having an issue with.
Yeah.
So before we go any further, let's tell the audience, how does astrology work? I mean, is it a science?
It
Because there are some
absolutely
people out there that may be skeptic
is.
of what is that? What is she talking about? But how does it work? And is it a science? And let's just talk about explaining the mechanisms to it.
Sure.
Mhm.
It's one of my favorite topics. So, astrology is absolutely a science. It was the first science ever, so it was the original science, and it's often regarded as an observational science. We can look at the sky and see that Jupiter was doing this at the time when this happened on Earth. So we can, write that down and see if that same thing happens again when Jupiter does that again, right? Which is totally valid. That's still science. But astrology actually has a mechanism for how it makes things happen on Earth. And it's electromagnetism, the science of light and sound and how that affects everything in the universe, including humans on Earth and our
Mm,
DNA. Everything has a toroidal field, basically. Our cells have it, our bodies have it, the Earth has it, and every other planet has it. And that's how we're all connected.
mm.
And this field is essentially, light and sound. And for humans in particular, we have this light field. It's basically what people are talking about when they talk about the light body. We have this light field around us. It's like a Fabergé egg in that it has different layers at different distances. So, about 30 centimeters out, you're, looking at, a particular thing in the body, like, cell walls. 80 centimeters out and beyond, you're actually looking at DNA, the things inside of the cells, the ribosomes, the nucleus, all of that. So the further out you are in this light field, the deeper in to your body you are. So your light field is basically taking up the entire room. Like the far corner of the room right now is telling you something about your DNA in your cells. So the further out the planets are, the deeper the impact is. Like Pluto, for instance, is the planet that's, the furthest away from us in the universe. And in astrology, it symbolizes DNA and,
Right.
ancestral trauma, things that are passed down. In medical astrology, it could be a genetic defect. So truly, the further out you are, the deeper in you are with the light field.
Wow. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just amazing information. Now I want to go back to, you started talking about intuition, and that's one of my favorite topics because understanding the difference between your intuition and your conscious mind is practice. And you got to take it, it takes practice knowing, is it me thinking this, or is it the subconscious mind? Is it the intuition I have that's giving me this path? And I guess, what do you think? How do you know the difference between, let's just say, a person's fear?
Mhm.
You could fear something and I'm not doing that. Okay, that's fear, right? So how do you know the difference between their fear and their intuition?
For me, it comes back to being in your body because your body knows the difference between the truth and a lie, whereas your conscious state may not know the difference.
Mm,
So you can feel this yes or no answer, the truth versus a lie or fear or expectation, something other than the truth in your muscles. If you can isolate a group of muscles, so I do muscle testing with the sway method.
sway
So,
technique, sway
yes,
back and forth.
yes,
Subconscious
exactly.
mind would not take negative programming.
Exactly. So if you say something that's true, your indicator muscles, your core, will strengthen by, I think, about 17%. So this will send you forward. If you say something that's not true, then they'll relax by about the same percentage and you'll sway backwards a little bit. And sometimes people get this reverse. Their yes will be a backwards instead of a forward. And in that case, you're actually experiencing something called neurogenic switching or blocked regulation. And then there's some advanced techniques to get in there and fix that kind of like misfiring that's going on. But essentially, to know the difference between fear and intuition, you just have to get into your body and tap into the subconscious information that your consciousness can't tap into.
I'm not letting you escape so easily. We're moving back to the sway technique because I love the sway technique. So when I'm a professional remote viewer, a
Oh,
social remote
cool.
viewing, and I use my intuition, I use my psychic abilities. I didn't say psychic medium, psychic abilities, because we all have them
Mhm.
to locate objects or to predict the outcome of future events. So, having said that, once I get the answer to what I'm looking for, I then use the sway test to
Yes.
kind of back up my results. And it's
Mhm.
always the right, it always comes in the right way, the correct way. In the sway test, and I didn't realize that your abdomen muscles tension 17% to move you forward or backwards. And I guess my question is on the sway test, isn't that more like the human avatar being a pendulum of some
Yes.
sort? And when you're using a pendulum, even in Reiki, it identifies closed meridians, energy wheels that are not turning, and Reiki masters use the pendulum to detect that so that they can get that chakra, get that particular meridian moving again. So that's the sway test is absolutely fantastic, and I encourage the audience to look it up on YouTube, or better yet, call Elizabeth. Call Elizabeth. We're going to talk about her website and everything she's doing a little bit later. But I had to stop and interrupt and talk about this because the sway test, ladies and gentlemen, you can use it to answer any question that you're looking for.
You truly can. Yeah. For everyone who's watching, if you want to just, get started and see, you think of your ankles as the hinge point. So this is where you're going to hinge forward or backwards. You think of your core as the group of muscles that'll either tighten or relax. And you stand with a good posture. You want to have the same posture every time, because the thing that makes it accurate is you're using your body weight as the amount of force, right? So you have to have the same posture, stand up straight, engage your core a little bit, chest lifted. And then you would say, my name is, for me, it would be Elizabeth. My name's Elizabeth. And then you would get a yes for forward. Now, if you don't get a forward sway, or you don't get any sway at all, or if you get a backward sway, then, we got to do some investigation and figure out what's going on. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it or that it's not working. It just means that you have some interference going on, basically.
And I give a wrong name to test it, and it always tells me no.
Yeah.
But another tip for the audience is meditate before you start that, because
Absolutely.
you clear your mind and get yourself centered. I've found that the sway test works, so much more better when you're calm and you don't have a lot of things in your mind. In speaking of using your intuition to answer things or to be there for you, can it be trusted? Can your intuition be trusted over your basic knowledge and the way you rationalize things?
That's a really good question. And it really depends on if you are unblocked and unswitched. So if your nervous system is regulated and your light body is coherent. So let me just kind of interject what the coherence is. So information travels on photons, on light.
Light.
And
Yes.
yeah, exactly. And if your light is incoherent, the light that's being projected from your body, then the information is scrambled. And it's the same with what you're picking up from the outside. So if, your intuition, basically, the information that's traveling on light can be scrambled if you're incoherent. So you have to get that part figured out first. You have to be unblocked and unswitched. Your nervous system has to be in, parasympathetic state, just like you were saying. But if that's the case, if you're in the state where you can receive information and you're using an evidence-based method like the sway method, then you can absolutely trust your intuition. And a lot of times you can trust it more than logic. Logic is the foundation. You need to understand how to investigate a question and how to interpret the answer. So logic is good, but logic can only see what's seen and know what's known. There are things that are unforeseeable, and your intuition can tap into that.
Absolutely wonderful. In your career and your coaching has been all about helping people to brand and helping women find themselves. So what does a personal brand mean, so to speak? And how are you able to determine your authentic personal brand?
Ooh, I love that question.
Yeah.
So I use astrology for this, because you can see, your timeless brand in astrology. You can see all of your hidden talents, all of your innate gifts, your purpose or purposes. We're all multi-passionate. We're not just going to have one purpose in life, but you can see that all in astrology. You can see the timing of it. You'll go through this evolution with your identity at this point, and you can lean into it and know that that is authentic for you versus we all kind of scroll social media and we see something that we like and we're like, oh, I identify with that, maybe that's part of my brand. But you just don't know unless you're actually, looking at some evidence. I consider astrology evidence. So I like to look at the natal chart. I like the part of fortune in the natal chart. I like Pallas Athena. She's an asteroid. Of course, the sun has something to do with it. That's your purpose, the midheaven. Let's see what else. Quintiles and biquintiles I really like. And then if you want to go really deep, which is what I do with my clients, is we also look at the D10 chart, which is the 10th divisional chart, where you can actually, it creates a whole new chart that's specifically for your purpose and career and what you're meant to put out into the world. And that's how I determine brand, because you can see messaging, you can see aesthetic, you can really see everything from astrology.
So we talked about astrology and what it was and how you use it. Is there somewhere people can go to look at their chart? Is it online? Is it just Google it, or where do
Yeah,
they go
so
to get this information?
it depends on basically how detailed you want to look at it. So I use the Ephemeris app, which I guess is probably just for iPhone.
Mhm.
But astroseek.com, I think, is one that I've used just online. And the way I set it up is I use whole sign houses and tropical calculations, although a lot of the techniques I use are considered Vedic or Hellenistic, kind of older, ancient predictive techniques.
Yeah. So are there times when you shouldn't trust your intuition? As your sole go-to mechanism? And do you have any examples on like times that you just shouldn't trust it?
I would say you should never make a decision based off of one piece of information. And your intuition is one piece of information. So it depends on, what are the stakes? How fast do you need to make the decision? If it's a high stakes situation and you have, a little bit of time to make the decision, then you should create as many pieces of evidence as you can, ask people that what they think, maybe consult an astrologer, pull a tarot card, or
Yeah.
do whatever you need to do to create more evidence to make your decision. But if you have to make a decision quickly, then your intuition is often your best bet. And, you should be able to make over 90% of decisions within 10
Wow.
minutes or less. If you're taking longer, then you really need to work on your intuition.
So Elizabeth, has there ever been a time when you trusted your intuition and it wasn't right, even though like logically it didn't make sense to you at the time?
I actually have an example of
Okay.
this morning. My little guy just turned a year old,
Oh,
and
great.
yeah, he's here with the sitter, and I needed to go downstairs, and I hadn't heard a peep from them for like maybe 20 minutes. So I'm thinking, surely he's napping, and I can just sneak down there unnoticed. So, I asked the universe, is he asleep? And I get a yes. And I'm like, okay, great. So I go downstairs and there he is, wide awake.
Right.
So I thought, well, I must be switched or something. So I got what I needed, came back upstairs, got my gear out. I use this polarization filter and the signal enhancer. It's Dr. Klinghart's teachings for autonomic response testing. This is the best way to tell if you're blocked or switched. So I go through, these mudras that tell you, if you're switched, and I came up with 2 that were switched. So I did something called tap and tone, where I find the meridian that correlates and I tap it and hum with an open mouth. And then I retested and I was spot on after that. But yeah, it's kind of like a minor example, but um, I pretty much know right away if my intuition is off and how to fix it.
And the hum, I just want to talk about that a little bit. In meditation, different types of hums and ra and
Mhm.
you know re sounds
Yes.
sounds really 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 help improve our well-being.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. We're gonna move to this. I want you to kind of explain this for me. We're gonna dive off into your website right quick. And yeah, I got you. Surprise. Um, so talk to me about the services. Tell the audience about, Elizabeth A. Clark and what does the website offer and what can they expect when they contact you?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So, I do have an app. It's available for iPhone and Android, iPad as well, I think. It's
Mhm.
called Discernment app. And that's what that first link there on the left is, the
Okay.
iOS app. That's a link to download it from Apple. And that has a lot of free resources in it, actually. Some high quality binaural beats, some guided meditations, some intuition quizzes. And it also has my intuition training in there as well, which you can do as an in app purchase. And I'm re recording it currently. So everyone who is in it before the re-record drops gets access to the new and improved version as well. But you can just learn how to do the sway method from your phone if you want. And there's also a way to sign up for my moon messages, which are a daily text message that just gets sent to your phone. And it's basically an astrological prediction for the day based mostly on the moon because it's meant to be more about how we're going to experience the day. And that's what the moon tells you, what's your subjective experience. So that's the thing on the left. Then in the middle, I have mentorship. So I really love working one on one with clients in a long term capacity to reach bigger goals, career
Yeah.
goals, business goals, anything related to, what you think your next up level is going to be. If you're right there on the cusp of it, but you just want to be able to trust yourself a little bit more so you can make those bold moves that get you noticed. That's what we're doing in mentorship. And we create your whole manifesto too. So we use astrology to go in and say, what are your purposes? What's your primary focus right now based on, these timelines in astrology? What are your hidden talents that you can't see, but other people would say that you're known for,
Yes.
that, that's something that is extremely valuable. And then there on the far right, the training, the discernment framework, this is again, my muscle testing training that's about to re-release with a brand new version.
Absolutely wonderful. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, www.elizabeth Clark ms.com. Elizabeth A. Clark ms.com. Fabulous, fabulous woman that helps and works with people on developing their intuition and helping build your brand, whether it be your brand in your personal life or your business brand, and how you move forward with the way that you want to be. Um, I want to ask you this, Elizabeth, about women in particular, because there's a difference between women and men and how our psyche works. And women are seen as more caring and loving, while men are, rugged and tough. But a woman's intuition is something a mother's
Yeah.
intuition is special. Is there a difference? Is women's intuition a thing?
Mhm.
And if so, why?
Well, that's a great question.
Mhm.
I think there's a biomedical reason. So there's like an anatomical reason. Our thymus gland holds a lot of intuition, actually. It's named
Yeah.
after a Greek word that meant the soul because it's where they believed the soul lived. Our thymus glands are completely different. They're a different volume, a different shape, and they change during the different life cycles that women experience that men don't, like pregnancy. So that's part of it. Another part of it's hormones. And you can actually, see this in real time during, your monthly cycle. Your intuition is heightened during ovulation, and it's clouded during menstruation. So the week that you're on your period, you're actually more susceptible to fear and paranoia and suspicion, and interpreting that as intuition or misinterpreting that as intuition. So men have the same set of hormones, every day, and it cycles, every 24 hours. So instead of cycling every, 28 to 30 days like women, men go through it all in a 1 day, span of time.
So are
So
women more intuitive than men?
I think that women have a better ability to tap into their intuition
Okay.
just innately, but men can learn how to do it too. And what I have seen in my personal experience is that men have a harder time learning the sway than women do. It takes a lot of coaching for men to let themselves sway. So I think it's more of a programming thing where men in general are just raised to be invulnerable, to not let their bodies be movable. So when you say, say a lie and you'll sway backwards, a lot of men will just say the lie and nothing happens,
And just to piggyback on what you said, um, being able to allow yourself to feel.
Mhm,
And we know that women are more biologically geared towards that. And it takes men to go through maybe an awakening,
mhm.
or maybe the environment they grew up in as a man, to understand that it's okay to feel. And
Yes.
that's how we
Mhm.
stunt our psychic abilities,
Yes.
not allowing ourselves to feel things, and succumbing to this construct in
Yeah.
our everyday environment. And that brings me to, we talked about astrology, and you eloquently you laid out the mechanisms of it and how it worked. So the topic that we're speaking about, intuition, is there a mechanism, a scientific mechanism for intuition as well? I mean, can you measure it? Is it researchable?
Yeah, it absolutely is. 10 years ago, there was not much published research on
Mm,
intuition, but now there's actually a really good body of evidence, and it's measured in all kinds of different ways. It's measured with brain scan, it's measured with heart rate variability, it's measured with the electroconductivity of your skin, aka goosebumps. A lot of people get goosebumps when they're feeling their intuition. So there are a lot of different ways that it's measured in the research, and there are some ways that it's kind of indirectly measured, but not really having the dots connected. Like with muscle testing, the muscle testing research is mostly in the context of diagnosis, right? People using it in the context of health, but we can use it to determine any truth or any lie, not just what's going to be pro survival to you in that moment, a supplement or a food or a medication, or something like that. So there's actually a whole body of research on muscle testing as well. And if you're using that for intuition, then I would consider that also intuition research.
mm. So building your personal brand, and trying to figure out how to be your authentic self,
Mhm.
um, just trying to help people achieve that next big level in their career. Can you
Mhm.
talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. So these are basically the things that have helped me achieve, each one of my next levels throughout my career. And I really believe that one of the best things you can do in terms of trusting your intuition is to get a greater sense of self.
Mm,
So if you don't really know who you are, if you don't really have that clearly defined as a personal brand, you don't have to be like a social media influencer to have a brand. You already have a brand. If you just ask people that know you what they think of when they think of you, that's your brand. But you can leverage your personal brand, and you set the vibe. You can determine your personal brand. So, do that. Ask somebody, what they think of when they think of you. And if it's not what you want to be known for, or if it doesn't have the authority that you feel like you deserve, then you should consciously work on defining your personal brand. Because whether or not you're in business for yourself, or you have a job where you're working for someone else, 9 to 5, whatever, if you want to achieve that next level, you have to be memorable. You have to have an authority on something. It has to be defined and cohesive for people to think of you, and think of you as the person for, X, Y, or Z. So that's why I'm so passionate about that, is because we all have these innate gifts, but they're, for the most part, underutilized because we're not really defining them and being clear about, what it is that we do, or we're known for, or we're good at. And, that means that the world's missing out on you and what you can do.
So we're running up on our time limit. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience that they can take with them?
Ooh, actually, if
Last
you're
words of
open to it,
advice.
this is something kind of fun. So I talked about being blocked and switched when you're, trying to get in touch with your intuition, but there's a quick and dirty way to unblock and unswitch. One of them is the 0 point. So for women, it's here on the left hand, the outside of the middle knuckle. You would massage this pretty vigorously with your thumbnail for 33 seconds. For men, it's actually the right hand on the inside of that knuckle.
Okay.
So you massage that for 33 seconds, and that'll get you unblocked. So then you can
Wow.
ask your question, and it helps to regulate the nervous system. It helps to, kind of bring you back to center. And then the other thing, this is for more so switching. So if you're getting opposite answers, is called tap and tone. So the large intestine line, let me see if I can get that in the video. The
Yes.
inside of your hands, like this.
Hmm.
And then after about 15 seconds, flip it and do that side, the pinky side,
Hmm.
for another about 15 seconds. It should really total 33 seconds
Okay.
for both methods, and you'll hum with an open mouth.
Wow. Wow. Elizabeth Clark, it was a pleasure. A beautiful spirit, a beautiful woman with beautiful knowledge to share with us. Thank you. Hang out in the back office. I want to talk to you for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Yes. Hold on for 1 second. What a beautiful spirit, a beautiful lecture from Elizabeth. And it was an important piece of information, developing your intuition, because sometimes your conscious mind could be giving you the direction to move in, and we can't hear what our intuition is saying. And that's why Elizabeth talked about being grounded within yourself, being able to use some type of meditation or calming method, which she just showed us how to do, so that you can remove the blockages and you can utilize your intuition that much more. Using it for your personal brand, understanding and determining how authentic you are, just helping with making the right decisions. Intuition can help you in a lot of different ways. And I implore you to go on Elizabeth's website and book a consultation. Learn how to use the sway test. I use the sway test, and the sway test is absolutely amazing, and it works. And it works. Anytime you ask yourself a question, you can even make up a wrong answer. I mean, you can ask a question and the answer is wrong. And your body will respond by swaying backwards. And that's how you test. That's how I tested. But this has been a great Great show, and I'm elated that I was able to get Elizabeth on to discuss these things for the audience. And we're all about expanding our consciousness. But I want to leave you with three things, and I typically do this at the end of the show: relax, trust, and discover. Thank you for joining us tonight. Follow us on YouTube, at Expansion of Consciousness. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on all the platforms, Expansion of Consciousness. And when you get to the YouTube channel, press like and subscribe. It helps the show and it helps us continue to go. But I want to thank you again. Good night and God bless you.